Godzilla Planet of the Monsters is the 30th Godzilla film released by Toho and is the very first animated Godzilla film made. The movie is once again a straight-up reboot. Much like with Shin Godzilla, it ignores the events of the 1954 original. So in the very last summer of the 20th century, which would be 1999, giant monsters have popped up all over the world and have started destroying cities. Kamacuras, Anguirus, Rodan, Hedorah, Orga, Dogora, a monster that I guarantee most audiences in the US will not even know, and it's a monster movie that I personally have not seen. But the biggest threat to everyone, humans or monsters, is Godzilla. So aliens come down from Earth. They have a plan to try to fight off Godzilla for humanity with the help of their creation, Mechagodzilla. We'll get back to that a little later. But they can't get Mechagodzilla working on time, so the only logical thing to do is to evacuate the planet. So it's pretty much like reverse Planet Hulk. The storyline in Planet Hulk is that the Marvel Illuminati felt like the Hulk was too much of a danger to Earth, so they just shipped him out into space. In this movie, Godzilla has become such a problem that humanity has just said, you know what, fuck this. We'll go into outer space. We'll find a new civilization. So the aliens help humanity evacuate the Earth, and it proved to be the friendliest aliens since Miss Namikawa in Invasion of the Astro Monster. That's just a little taste of how nerdy I'm going to get in March. However, the new planet that they found is proven to be uninhabitable, so the only logical thing to do is head back to Earth and try to take back the planet from Godzilla. The only problem for humanity, though, is that things have gotten a lot worse since they actually left, including Godzilla himself. Fair warning, this review is actually going to contain spoilers. Even though I didn't list it in my thumbnail, there's a lot in this movie that I had issues with, and I can't talk about them without going into spoilers. So, if you haven't seen Godzilla Planet of the Monsters, but you don't want to be spoiled, it's on Netflix. Go ahead and watch it. It'll take you an hour and a half, and then come back to this video. For everyone else, if you've seen it or you don't care, let's get into the review. So the Godzilla series is more than 60 years old, and I'm surprised that it's taken them this long to actually make a Godzilla anime, because that's actually been one of my big requests when thinking about new Godzilla movies to make. Because throughout his entire 60-year history, Godzilla has been to outer space, he's fought King Kong, he's going to fight King Kong again, he's had 2 American films, they've experimented with time travel, and just last year won the Academy Award for Best Picture in Japan. So Godzilla has done a lot, but actually had an animated movie. So when this movie was announced, I was like, ooh, this is something I'm really looking forward to. However, that being said, I'm not a big anime fan. I don't watch a whole lot of anime. I did watch a lot of Dragon Ball Z when I was a kid, but that was mainly because I was just kind of waiting for Cartoon Fridays to pop up. So I'm just not that big into anime. Not that I dislike it or anything, it's just I have my priorities on other things. But I am a huge Godzilla fan. You guys know this about me. I am a massive Godzilla nerd. I've been loving the character and the entire franchise ever since I started watching the movies. And the idea of a Godzilla anime has excited me. But at the same time, I was kind of nervous. There were a few warning signs that made me think, this might not be as great as I'm picturing in my mind. But open thoughts. This could be good. And Godzilla Planet of the Monsters, unfortunately, I wish I could say it's good, but this sucks. I have a lot of negatives to say about the movie, but I want to talk about the positives first, because there are some good aspects about this movie. For one, I really love the concept where humanity leaves Earth because Godzilla has pretty much taken over, and then when they return, he's pretty much king of the entire planet. Like, screw being king of the monsters, he's king of Earth, and that's a neat concept. Godzilla himself is pretty cool. A lot of people have argued that he just looks too similar to the American Godzilla, the official American Godzilla. But I've been in love with this franchise long enough to know that a lot of Godzilla designs are similar to past designs. Like the Godzilla from the 2 Kiryu movies looks very similar to the one from Godzilla 2000 and Godzilla vs. Megaguirus. So I'm not really going to complain about the design of this Godzilla being too similar to a past design. And they do some cool things with this new Godzilla. I love the reinvention of his atomic breath, how it's sort of like an electrical surge, and it's just like a spurt. It's not like a full-fledged beam or actual breath that you see in past movies. It's just a quick spurt. but it's pretty destructive. And the animation's pretty decent. It bugged me at first when watching all the trailers because this is the same animation company that did Tron Uprising, the short-lived Disney XD show. The animation at points is very staticky. It's still hard for me to grasp the concept that this was actually released in theaters in Japan, because with Tron Uprising, it worked well because that whole show took place within a computer, so the animation being as jittery as it is was fitting because it's inside a computer. But with this, as the movie went along, I just kind of got used to the animation, and whenever they do anything with the monsters, it's pretty cool. Now let's get into the bad. This is such wasted potential of a plot. Like I mentioned, I love the concept of this movie, but they don't really take full advantage of it. The movie starts off in outer space, and everything that happens leading up to humanity leaving Earth is told in flashback. It's very similar to how Pacific Rim opens, where you have all these cool ideas to explore this world, but you just decide to do it within flashback and as a prologue. And all the classic Godzilla monsters I mentioned beforehand that pop up, like Anguirus, Rodan, Hedorah, Orga, Kamacuras is debatable, and how classic he actually is because it's just a giant praying mantis. They all show up in stills, or they're name dropped, like Hedorah's name dropped. Rodan and Anguirus, two of Godzilla's most popular sidekick monsters, are name dropped completely. We never see them. It just leaves you wishing for more. And I mentioned Mechagodzilla beforehand. Mechagodzilla is literally in this movie just to set up the sequel. They mention Mechagodzilla a couple times throughout the beginning of this movie, but again, he's just there for the creators to say, hey, we have Mechagodzilla, we're gonna use him in the sequel, and he's gonna be badass. I'm like, okay, why did you even bring him in to begin with? You could have just saved him for the second movie, and we probably would have been more excited. And also, another problem with having all these monsters from the past being name-dropped is that for a concept like Planet of the Monsters, this new Earth that humanity returns to is pretty deserted. The only monsters that we see are Godzilla, these new dragon-like creatures, and you know what? That's it. I might be going down the path of, if I made this movie, this is what I would have done, but it would be really cool to have Godzilla just be king of all these classic monsters, and it's an anime. You don't have to worry about budget costs, blending these monsters in live action, or building a whole arsenal of suits just for every monster. With animation, the door's wide open for endless possibilities, but they just don't take advantage of it. And another problem with having the core concept rushed in the beginning is that the actual movie takes a long time before we actually get to the meat of the story, where humanity actually heads back to Earth. And there's a lot of talk about Godzilla himself, how threatening he is, how he's evolved since humanity left Earth, but they don't really utilize him that much. All the stuff with Godzilla, again, is cool, but they don't really take advantage of Godzilla on a whole. And plus, the whole marketing campaign of the biggest Godzilla ever created is such a tease. It's a tease that's so big, I don't want to hear anybody criticize the 2014 movie for having a lack of Godzilla, because the biggest Godzilla in the world that they tease in this movie pops up in the last 10 minutes of the movie. And again, it's set up for the sequel. So what is this Godzilla that humanity fights throughout the whole movie? Well, it turns out it's a son of Godzilla, because there's more than one Godzilla in this entire movie. And what irritates me even more is that they don't use the Godzilla roar that often. Godzilla roars in this movie quite a bit and growls a lot, but it's some stock generic roar, and they only use his trademark roar 3 times. I had this problem with Gamera the Brave where they don't use the Gamera roar. I have an even bigger problem with this, that they barely use the Godzilla roar, because that roar is iconic. You could play that roar anywhere without any image of Godzilla, completely out of context, and people will automatically know that that's Godzilla's roar. Even the characters in the movie say that's a roar that you can never forget. Now, all of this sounds like I'm just bitching like a fanboy would that I didn't get the movie that I wanted, which I'll admit, I can forgive a lot of those faults if I actually cared about the characters. And the characters in this movie are as dull and as boring as shit. No personality at all. They're all pretty much drones. And the only trait that I can remember is that the main character of the movie, whose name I'm blanking on, is so hell-bent on destroying Godzilla. I mean, he's pretty much to Godzilla what Captain Ahab is to Moby Dick. He's just so obsessed with killing Godzilla. And after a while, it just gets so boring. I'm like, wow, don't you have anything better to do with your time? Don't you have a personality in the slightest? So I'm gonna wrap things up right here. I wanted to love this movie. I really wanted to like it. Because an animated Godzilla movie is something that I've been dying to ask for since I was kind of old enough to go into the mindset of, what would I do if I could make a Godzilla movie? And when we finally got our Godzilla animated movie, it's just another example of be careful what you wish for, because it does have a good concept. I do like some of the stuff that they do with Godzilla. I do like the animation and I like the color palette, but the characters are boring as shit. It takes a long time for the movie to actually get going. There's more talk about Godzilla than actually showcasing Godzilla. And this overall concept would have been perfect for a TV series, because this feels very much like a pilot to a TV series of a planet full of monsters where Godzilla is the ruler, but it's in a movie form. And I will be seeing the sequels because I just love talking about Godzilla, but I can't say I'm excited for the next two movies. So I'm going to say, watch at your own risk. I know that there are some people out there who are enjoying this movie, and good for them. I wish I could be in the same boat. And nobody's really more disappointed in this movie than I am, because, again, I'm a massive Godzilla fan. I wanted to see the first animated Godzilla movie succeed, and unfortunately, I didn't think it did. So, oh well. Better luck next time. And that's my review for Godzilla Planet of the Monsters. I hope you enjoyed it. Leave a comment down below and tell me what your thoughts are on the movie, if and when you've seen it. And don't forget, starting March 1st is the Return of Godzilla month, where I re-review the first 28 Godzilla movies throughout his first 50-year history. So keep your eyes open for that. And until next time, this is the real Mr. Robinson telling you, there's only one.